when Murdoc asked for an obscure record, he slipped a bag over Russell, taking him away to Kong Studios. Fortunately, Russell liked the music Murdoc was working on and decided to stay. Now they just needed a guitarist, although technically
Murdoc is weird. I like him though, bro. Yo, what's good with y'all, man? It's your boy Jay. Y'all know what time it is, man. We back with another reaction video. As y'all can see today, we got this Gorillaz The Complete Backstory, phases 1 through 4. I think it's like a 2-part video, so I'll probably get to the other one after this. Right now it's at 4.3 million views, 100,000 likes. Hopefully this helped me out, man, because y'all already know I need it. Hey, man, with that being said, we ain't gonna do no more talking, man. If y'all enjoy the reaction, make sure y'all leave a like. Let's get to it. Try not to pause too much too, man, because I only got like 33 minutes to record.
Hey guys, welcome to Foundflix. The virtual band Gorillaz are back after a 7-year hiatus with the new album Humanz. Their music is consistently innovative and creative, but I've been equally fascinated by the fictional band's story. 2D, Russell, Murdoc, and Noodle have their own rich, unique backstory that develops over the course of the albums. Even as a huge Gorillaz fan, there's so much story to each phase that it's impossible to keep straight. That's why in this video, I'm going to compile the entire backstory of the band in one video, all the way from the beginning to today. And if there's one phase you're looking for in particular, check in the description below where I have links to each phase's
bro, this eyes missing like that is weird, bro. Like, this shit is weird to look at, bro. Celebrity Takedown, 1998-2003.
The origin of the Gorillaz can be traced back to a fateful encounter on August 15th, 1997. 2D, then known as Stu Pot, a mentally deficient keyboard enthusiast, worked part-time at an instrument shop, Uncle Norm's Organ Emporium. Meanwhile, local hoodlum and Satanist Murdoc Nichols had dreams of creating a chart-topping band and was willing to do anything to make it happen. In desperate need of equipment, he crashed his Vauxhall Astra into Uncle Norm's store, driving through the building and crashing directly into Stu Pot's head.
Oh, so that's why he's missing his eyes, bruh.
Murdoc was sentenced to 30,000 hours of community service, including taking care of the now
30,000?
Stu.
3,000?
Not long after, Stu's other eye was damaged when Murdoc was trying to impress some girls by doing 360-degree turns in a Tesco parking lot. Stu was thrown from the car, hitting his head on the curb, damaging his other eye, but waking him from his catatonic state.
Wow,
after this, Murdoc recruited Stu into his band, impressed with his black-eyed look, dubbing him 2D for the 2 dents in his head.
For his eyes, bro.
What are called 8-ball fractures, where the iris of the eye is filled with blood. He can still see, but his vision is blurry. A sprawling building with a strange history built atop a hill within a rundown cemetery and landfill in Essex. Murdoc discovered.
Hold up, he's talking a little bit too fast. Hold on, bro. Take it back right there.
Blurry. Then in September,
right there.
D for the 2 other eye, but waking him from his catatonic state. After this, Murdoc recruited Stu into his band, impressed with his black-eyed look, dubbing him.
He's impressed with his eyes, bro.
In his head. 2D's eyes have what are called 8-ball fractures, where the iris of the eye is filled with blood. He can still see, but his vision is blurry. Then in September of 1998, Murdoc acquired Kong Studios, a sprawling building with a strange history built atop a hill within a rundown cemetery and landfill in Essex. Murdoc discovered the building on the website Giant Disused Haunted Studios in the Middle of Nowhere.com. Well, that sure is specific. The owners were looking for a caretaker to look after the building in the off-season. It was only supposed to be for a few months, but when Murdoc arrived for the interview, the owners threw the keys at him and ran down the hill screaming. Murdoc and 2D instantly knew they found the perfect place to call home. Murdoc then found a drummer for the group, Russell Hobbs, a middle-class New York native with a troubled history. He was expelled from a private school for suffering from demon possession, and the trauma of his possession left him in a 4-year coma. He was finally awoken by an elaborate exorcism. After recovering, Russell began attending Brooklyn High School, where he made friends with a group of rappers, DJs, MCs, and street musicians. They introduced Russell to hip-hop, which he says saved his soul. Unfortunately, his friends were all gunned down in a drive-by shooting by gangbangers who all wore red hood tops. One was wearing a black hood, and thusly Russell called him the Grim Reaper, who plays into Russell's story later. Russell was the only survivor of the shooting, and surprisingly, he became the receptacle for all of his slain friends' souls, including the Blue Phantom and spirit of his best friend, Del the Funky Homo Sapien. With the power
so that was his best friend in the video?
Russell gained impressive skills in crafting hip-hop music, but also left him with the side effect of glowing eyes. His parents shipped him off to the UK for his own safety and to hopefully move on from all the trauma he suffered, but he was unknowingly put right into the path of murder.
Bro, it seems like they all got stuff wrong with their eyes, man. Like 2D got the black balls, he got the glowing eyes. I think Noodle got the Japanese eyes to where they always closed. I feel like it's something with all their eyes, man.
Phantom and spirit of his best friend, Del the Funky Homo Sapien. With the power of their spirits in him, Russell gained impressive skills in crafting hip-hop music, but also left him with the side effect of
so he had the spirits in him?
His parents shipped him off to the UK for his own safety and to hopefully move on from all the trauma he suffered, but he was unknowingly put right into the path of Murdoc and his quest for superstardom. Russell got a job at Murdoc record shack in Soho, where he first encountered Murdoc. When Murdoc asked for an obscure record, he slipped a bag over Russell, taking him away to Kong Studios. Fortunately, Russell liked the music Murdoc was working on and decided to stay. Now they just needed a guitarist, although technically
Murdoc is weird. I like him though, bro.
2D's ex-girlfriend Paula Cracker. 2D liked her, but Russell caught Paula and Murdoc having an affair in the Kong Studios toilets. Romantic.
Oh, no.
Russell, being 2D's best friend at the time, was furious, breaking Murdoc's nose in 5 places, which gave it its signature.
Wait, hold on.
Though his nose was
Wait, so 2D was getting down with Russell girl, or was it Russell getting down with 2D girl? Hey, this is a crazy story so far, bro, and it's just getting started, man.
Murdoc. When Murdoc asked for an obscure record, he slipped a bag over Russell, taking him away to
I think I went back too far, bro.
Fortunately, Russell liked the music Murdoc was working on and decided to stay. Now they just needed a guitarist, although technically they did have one for a bit in 2D's ex-girlfriend Paula Cracker. 2D liked her, but Russell caught Paula and Murdoc having an affair in the Kong Studios toilets. Romantic. Russell, being 2D's best friend at the time, was furious, breaking Murdoc's nose in 5
so Murdoc was doing it with 2D.
Signature strange appearance.
Though
his nose was actually broken a few times before this as well. So Paula was let go, and the guy
Murdoc is evil, bro.
Band would do when needing a guitarist, put an ad in NME. Literally the same day the ad went out, a FedEx package arrived on Kong Studios steps. A small 10-year-old Japanese girl with memory loss busted out of the crate wielding a Gibson Les Paul and performed a shredding guitar solo, which
this is like a real cartoon show.
Demons screaming in Arabic. Brilliant! She ended the solo with a 20-foot karate kick, then bowed, saying only the word noodle, which became her moniker going forward and is her only known name. How she wound up at Kong Studios and her mysterious past will be explored in Phase 2. The band now assembled, they
gotta watch that one.
Gorillaz and recorded their first song, Ghost Train, at Kong Studios.
I thought it was
their first live show on November 5th, 1998 at the Camden Brown House, which ended prematurely due to a riot breaking out during their song Punk. But it was worth it in the end, as EMI
Did that really happen, bro?
Whiffy Smiffy signed the band immediately to the label after discharging several shotgun rounds to disperse the crowd. They released their first collection of music with the Tomorrow Comes Today EP in November 2000. Then their full-length
I thought that was the first
Gorillaz
track.
Was released on March 26, 2001, featuring the singles Clint Eastwood, 19-2000,
That's my song right there, bro.
Tomorrow Comes Today. At the beginning of 2002, Gorillaz embarked on an 11-month tour of North America. After the tour, they took a 6-month break in LA, where they attempted to get a
take it back a little bit.
The crowd.
This man, I ain't gonna let this man talk fast, bro. He not even breathing, bro.
EP in November 2000. Then their full-length debut album Gorillaz was released on March 26, 2001, featuring the singles Clint Eastwood, 19-2000, Rock the House, and Tomorrow Comes Today. At the beginning of 2002, Gorillaz embarked on an 11-month tour of North America. After the tour, they took a 6-month break in LA, where they attempted to get a Gorillaz movie project off the ground. That Halloween, Kong Studios was shut down by law enforcement. The police kept the area secure while they investigated the strange paranormal activity of the area, and Gorillaz spent this time working on their movie while renting a house in the Hollywood Hills. But the movie ran into problems due to the band over-partying and disagreements with producers and directors. The movie fell apart.
But this is like real life, bro.
When Murdoc almost killed 2D, and the band went their separate ways on a 1.5-year hiatus.
But they really got this like real life, dude. Phase 2, Slowboat
went back to Eastbourne and worked at his father's fun fair, where he got better and came to terms with his newfound pop icon status. Murdoc headed to Mexico to get drunk in Tijuana,
went to prison,
getting himself arrested for using bad checks in the process. In jail, his only companions were his raven Cortez and 2 Mexican mobsters who later helped him break out of prison. Russell remained in LA, but became increasingly haunted by the Grim Reaper, who eventually ripped the soul of Del from his body. And even though Russell is free of his possession, his glowing eyes still remain as a permanent side effect. This led to Russell having a big breakdown, but luckily Ike Turner let him stay in his basement, where Russell started working on an album. But he had trouble completing it as he was plagued by hallucinations of demons.
So he's trying to go solo?
During the hiatus, a lot happened to each member, but most notably Noodle. She had been suffering from nightmares and visions on the Gorillaz tour, and so she returned to Japan in hopes of learning about her forgotten past. She visited a sushi bar in Osaka, where she heard a waiter tell the chef that he needed an order of ocean bacon. Upon hearing this phrase, Noodle regained all of her memories of her past including her ability to speak English, and in fact,
just by saying ocean baking.
She reunited with her mentor, Mr. Kyozo, and learned that she was part of a secret government super soldier project, and was the only survivor after the project was scrapped. Kyozo was forced to kill the others, but couldn't bring himself to hurt Noodle. He erased her memories with the words ocean bacon and sent her to England in a FedEx crate. Now we know what led Noodle to Kong Studios in the first place. With a newfound resolve after regaining her memories, Noodle returned to Kong, which she found in a state of disrepair in the band's absence. And even worse, the studio had become infested with hordes of zombies. Using Kong's surveillance room as a safe house, Noodle slowly cleaned Kong Studios of the undead inhabitants. During this time, Noodle decided to record her own album, and she laid out the concept for the 2005 album Demon Days. And after ridding the building of zombies, Noodle set out to reunite with her bandmates. Demon Days was
how did she get rid of the zombies by herself?
Featuring the singles Feel Good Incorporated, Dirty Harry, and the double A-side of Kids with Guns and El Manana. Near the end of this phase, Noodle was considering taking a break from the band for a while and planned to leave after filming the final music video for El Manana. But things went south when two heavily armed helicopters appear and gun down the island. It seems that the helicopters were part of the video.
These are all in the music video. That's crazy.
But the plan was for Noodle to parachute off the island to safety. And it appears that Noodle perished in the crash, and all that we see left is a used parachute. Everyone was devastated, that is everyone except for Murdoc, who knew what was really going on. What really happened here was quite a surprising turn of events and tied all the way back to the very beginning of the band. What we saw was in fact part of a plan Murdoc put in action to get rid of Jimmy Manson, a 3-foot-tall hippie that auditioned years ago to be the guitarist for Gorillaz, but was turned down by Murdoc after Noodle took the job. Years later, Jimmy became the head of the Gorillaz music label Stateside, but he has been harboring a grudge for years, planning to kill off the Gorillaz and cash in on their success. He approached Murdoc to help him put this plan into action, and Murdoc agreed. Murdoc was to secretly stash guns in the windmill tower, and Jimmy was to hide inside and wait until the helicopters started firing. As filming began and the helicopters fired, Jimmy realized that Murdoc had double-crossed him, locking him in the tower with no guns. Noodle did parachute off the island safely while the island crashed and exploded, killing Jimmy Manson in the process. When discussing autobiography Rise of the Ogre, Murdoc had this to say on the matter: "There's no way I'm killing Noodle. She's Noodle. I'm not having some 2-bit loudly despot record company nut killing off my band." He set himself up and burned all the evidence in the process. Instant karma for Mr. Jimmy Manson. Though for now,
Loki is karma though, bro.
And Tootie and Russell set off in search of her, and the band go their separate ways once more.
Crazy story, bruh.
Now on his own, Murdoc spent the next few years on a bender around the world until 2008. Running low on funds, he burned down the ruins of Kong Studios, cashed in on the insurance money, blamed the fire on some kids who were arrested, and fled the country. Oh, Murdoc.
Bro, this man is crazy.
That part of his motivation to flee was him being pursued by a deadly underground network of pirates referred to as the Black Clouds, who are out to kill Murdoc after a failed business deal. He searched the world for a new hideout, discovering an island in the middle of the ocean made entirely out of landfill stuck together. He painted the island bright pink and used the insurance money to build a new Gorillaz HQ on top, naming the island Plastic Beach. Murdoc had the band's belongings shipped to the island and began production for the third Gorillaz album. After Demon Days, 2D was said to be on vacation on a Jamaican beach, and according to text in G-Side, he was said to be completing a law degree. It's hard to say for sure, as we only first see him in an apartment in Beirut, where he is gassed and shipped to Plastic Beach in a suitcase. 2D believes that it was Murdoc that took him, and who could blame him? But it was actually a new villain, a demon wearing a gas mask that is the embodiment of all evil, the Boogeyman. The Boogeyman is seen prominently throughout Phase 3, but it does appear that the Boogeyman is working with Murdoc. For now, at least. More on him in a moment. Meanwhile, Noodle is still presumed dead, or is at least still missing, and according to Murdoc, he searched the El Manana crash for her remains, only finding some bits of DNA. He used this DNA to construct a cyborg Noodle to act as guitarist on the album.
So that's how she was made.
As for Russell, Murdoc did seek him out, but said he had essentially dropped off the face of the earth, and Murdoc was forced to build a drum machine from Russell's equipment to provide percussion for the album. Plastic Beach was released on March 3rd, 2010, featuring the singles Stylo, Superfast Jellyfish, On Melancholy Hill, and Rhinestone Eyes. So Noodle and Russell were not involved with the making of Plastic Beach, but we do discover their whereabouts over the Phases music video storyline. In 2010, Russell embarked on a journey to an unknown destination, which we find out is Plastic Beach, by diving off a dock and into the Pacific Ocean. The band's journey to Plastic Beach begins in the Stylo video, with Murdoc, 2D, and Cyborg Noodle driving a 1969 Camaro SS called Stylo. They have obviously been through some stuff already, as 2D is seen bruised, and Cyborg Noodle has a bullet hole in her head. They evade the police and
I was trying to figure out how she got shot.
Hunter pursuing them in an El Camino on a stretch of highway in the California desert. There's also a large black cloud that appears overhead, and soon after the boogeyman appears, manifesting from the ground surrounded by similar clouds, taking a police officer and disappearing. Bruce loses track of the three when they drive off the road into the Pacific Ocean, and as they descend into the water, Stylo transforms into a shark-like submarine. Then on Melancholy Hill, we have the return of Noodle 4 years after
crazy connection, bro.
She is aboard an ocean liner, the M. Harriet, which is under attack by two planes, most likely the Black Clouds. Noodle retrieves a Thompson machine gun and fires on the planes, taking one out. But she doesn't have enough time to shoot the other, which drops a bomb on the ship. As the ship sinks,
I thought she died right there, bro.
Only her guitar and some supplies. Meanwhile, Cyborg Noodle regains consciousness inside of the shark sub, and the trio continues towards Plastic Beach, now joined by the album's various collaborators in a fleet of underwater crafts. They rise to the surface where a large manatee is sitting atop a tall plateau. Murdoc spies the boogeyman on top through his telescope and orders Cyborg Noodle to open fire. The boogeyman retreats, grabbing the manatee and diving into the ocean. As the fog clears, Plastic Beach,
I was so lost, bro.
They made it, but back to Noodle, who is floating aimlessly in her lifeboat. A gigantic version of Russell rises out of the water underneath her boat, ending up with her on top of
I didn't even know that was Russell, bro.
Gets so big. During his long swim across the ocean, Russell ingested so much pollution, trash, and toxic waste that it actually transformed him into a giant. And he is seriously huge. In the fall of 2010,
this is crazy,
embarked on their first world tour, but unfortunately Murdoc, 2D, and Cyborg Noodle spent the entire tour locked in the dressing room, while an imposter Gorillaz live band played in their place. Murdoc suspected that when he refused to give his soul to Satan for making Gorillaz successful, he made it so the live band would get all of Gorillaz' glory. And it is reneging on this same deal with Satan that causes the boogeyman to track down Murdoc to claim his soul, as we see throughout the phase. We would have seen this and the phase's story come to an epic climax in the Rhinestone Eyes video, but sadly it was canceled. All that remains are storyboards, but we can still piece together what happened. It starts by showing us Russell and Noodle continuing their trek across the ocean. On the roof of Plastic Beach, the boogeyman is waiting. Murdoc and Cyborg Noodle join him, and Cyborg opens fire on the boogeyman. The boogeyman escapes again, and 2D sees him swim by from his underwater room. From his ship, the boogeyman summons the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Apparently, the boogeyman is a rejected 5th horseman who is called Flatulence. Noodle emerges outside just as the boogeyman summons pirates, who we have to conclude are the Black Cloud, led by the boogeyman. And considering he can turn into a black cloud, it seems to make the most sense. All hell breaks loose as the Black Cloud lead their final assault on Plastic Beach, and Murdoc hides inside, fearing for his life. Cyborg Noodle leads a retaliation with the collaborators, all now armed and ready for battle. Meanwhile, underwater, 2D watches as
like Noodle be ready for war, bruh.
Towards his room. But just then, Giant Russell appears, grabbing the whale by its tail, hurling it into the air and taking out a Black Cloud plane. The video ends as Giant Russell leans over the side of the island. He opens his mouth, revealing the real Noodle inside, and we see under her cat mask she has a facial scar from the El Manana incident.
Okay,
now, from here, there's a bit of a divergence between the end of Phase 3 and the beginning of Phase 4. Where things go back in 2011 doesn't quite add up chronologically to the members' new backstories recently revealed. So I will continue with the original timeline and explore the revised story in the Phase 4 section. Soon after the video ends, the Black Clouds bombarded the island, and in the chaos, the whale breaks through 2D's wall and he is swallowed whole. While this was happening, Cyborg Noodle suffered a malfunction and tried to kill Murdoc, but she was put offline permanently by Noodle. Russell manages to rescue Noodle, and 2D escapes the whale. The boogeyman searched Plastic Beach for Murdoc, but Murdoc faked his death, leaving a shoddy fake Murdoc behind, and escaped, while the boogeyman collected the wrong soul. Shortly afterwards, the evangelist, the poor opposite of the boogeyman, appeared and wiped him out. Murdoc left in a rowboat, saying he was caught up in a typhoon, and landed in Hawaii, where he began to record a new radio show to celebrate Gorillaz' 10-year anniversary. But it turns out he wasn't in Hawaii at all, but in a ransacked house in London, and the other members were able to track him down. We don't know what happens when they reunite, but as of October 2011, the 4 members were living at 212 Wobble Street, London.
But they should just made a show, bruh.
And the boogeyman is
literally
alive.
Man.
He's now the band's roommate, apparently. This is the last we've seen of the boogeyman so far, and it's definitely a weird way for the story to play out. But considering several plots were more or less canceled, this is probably all we will ever get. Russell, still huge, sleeps on the roof, and chained to the house, we see the damaged Windmill Island floating in the sky. There's also the Stylo car out front, crashed into a light post. 2D then receives a letter stating the band is being evicted from the residence, which he actually seems happy about. And this is the end of Phase 3, but what we learn about Phase 4 changes what happens during the attack on Plastic Beach, retconning the story from there.
Phase 4, Humanz after all.
Now on to Phase 4. As the phase is only beginning, there is sure to be a lot more to come, especially with the TV series coming next year. But the story
I gotta see that, bro.
Began years
Got
ago
to.
back on the attack on Plastic Beach. Most of what we find out comes from each member's respective books that fill us in on what they've been up to. The Black Cloud laid waste to the island, and Murdoc escaped in a rusty submarine with Cyborg Noodle in tow for company, which Murdoc describes as the perfect shipmate for him, as she didn't speak, she didn't judge, and she had absolutely no sense of smell. Eventually, Murdoc drank all the cases of Psycho Jerry's rum on board, and he made it to the surface for a whiz. As he was emptying his dangerously enlarged bladder, a giant shadow loomed over him. The battleship Ringo, which is owned by
I thought it was the Boogeyman.
EMI and Gorilla's record label. EMI sent a fleet of ships in search of Murdoc, and at last they had him. He was captured, slapped around, and taken to a secret prison in London. For 3 years, Murdoc lived in
finally got caught, bro.
Road Studios until one day he was offered a deal by Entertainment Internal Affairs. With the music industry going down the toilet, they desperately needed Murdoc's help. In exchange for his release, Murdoc agreed to write a new Gorillaz album and moved immediately to a new studio home in West London. Next up, 2D. During the attack on Plastic Beach, he hid in his underwater room. Without realizing it, he put himself in danger of a far fiercer foe, Massive Dick, a great white whale. The beast swallowed 2D in one bite, swimming into the deep. But a lifetime of eating ocean garbage and now 2D took its toll on the whale, who died. His carcass washed up on a desert island where 2D was finally free. Too bad he has no survival skills whatsoever, so he has no option but to eat his former host. Several months later, 2D spotted a plane flying along the coast. Moved to tears by the sight of hope, he set off after the plane. A mere 23 minutes later, he was in the middle of a full-scale beach raid. It turns out 2D wasn't marooned at all, but he had in fact landed in Guadalupe off the Mexican coast. 2D joined the beach party, ate some strange tasting brownies, and came in third in the wet t-shirt contest. As he claimed his prize, 2D had a eureka moment. He would take a year to find himself, which was actually really easy as he was right there. But he stayed the whole year anyway until he got sacked from his job weaving friendship bracelets, and it was time to go home. At Heathrow Airport, a man at arrivals held up a sign saying "Wanker," which 2D of course knew was for him. The car took him back to West London and Murdoc's new HQ. Russell escaped from the pirate attack, cradling Noodle in his giant mouth and swimming away. They ran into trouble off the coast of Japan when Russell was mistaken for a whale and harpooned. He managed to wriggle free, but Noodle was lost.
Mistaken for a whale?
In the blood-red waters. Wounded and delirious, Russell struggled through the ocean humming "All by Myself" until he lost consciousness. Eventually, he drifted into the Yellow Sea, washing up on a North Korean beach. Giant Russell was taken by the North Korean leaders, where he was put on exhibition. The leader declared he had captured Pulgasari, the legendary North Korean Godzilla. Russell quickly became the country's biggest attraction, but in time, the country's meager food rations caused Russell to shrink back to normal size. Realizing he was just a man, the leader proclaimed that he had personally defeated Pulgasari, and Russell was released. He was sent back to England, where he wandered the streets of London until musician and Gorillaz collaborator Jeff Wooten let him crash on his futon. A few days later, Jeff got a call from Murdoc, and Russell immediately moved into Murdoc's new place. As for Noodle, she awoke days after the Plastic Beach attack in a Japanese fishing village. She'd been nursed back to health by an old pearl diver named Chiyoko, and to repay his kindness, she took a job as his apprentice. One day, while beneath the waves, Noodle opened a giant pearl shell, accidentally releasing an ancient hell demon called Mazu. Mazu is a shape-shifting devil of unimaginable evil that can take human form. Noodle set out to destroy it, and she spent years pursuing Mazu across Japan, finally tracking it down to Tokyo, where it had risen to the top of the criminal underworld. Noodle disguised herself as a geisha and infiltrated Mazu's headquarters, the Demon's Lodge. While Mazu was distracted by a heated bout of drink while you think, Noodle lopped its head off, ending its earthly existence. She escaped its bodyguards, packing herself into a FedEx crate with dried fish, bottled water, and a copy of Moby Dick. Her package was addressed to Murdoc in London. The band finally had made it back.
Why does she love getting in boxes, bruh?
Their separate trials after the Plastic Beach attack, and began to record the newest Gorillaz album, Humanz. Humanz was released on April 28, 2017, featuring the singles Hallelujah Money, Saturn's Bars, We Got the Power, Ascension, Andromeda, Let Me Out, and The Apprentice. Well, that's a lot. Though we only see the Gorillaz story continue in the video for Saturn's Bars. The Bath! It features the band moving into Spirit House, what we assume is this phase's HQ. As the band make their way there, we see this creepy face in a window. Maybe this is the first appearance of this phase's villain, or just something to be creepy. The spirit house is aptly named. Not only is it decrepit and spooky, but is haunted by some weird looking spirits. The band try to relax and each have strange encounters with the inhabitants of the house, most notably Murdoc, who goes on an interstellar psychedelic journey. The haunting comes to a climax and the spirits seem to vanish. The next morning, the band leaves the house for pancakes, and as they drive off, there's a suffocated highway scene overhead. There's also signs all over the place for new developments around the area. The city is swallowing everything around it. That's all we know so far about Phase 4's story.
This is crazy,
this is
bro.
only the beginning. The Gorillaz have had one interesting, complicated journey so far, and I'm excited to see what happens next. That'll do it for my breakdown of the Gorillaz backstory. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you have any other videos you'd like to see me do, let me know down below.
I gotta see that TV show, man.
See you next time.
Alright, we're gonna stop it right there. Alright, man, so we're gonna end the video right there, man. They'll have the Gorillaz Phase 4. Well, Phase 1 through 4. I ain't gonna lie, that was a crazy story, but that was a lot to keep up with, man. Like I said, bro, I'm really looking forward to that TV show. If y'all want me to check out the next phase, make sure y'all leave in the comments down below. That being said, no more talking, man. If y'all enjoyed the reaction, make sure y'all leave a like. We out, man.